Hi, everyone. I would like to talk to you a little bit about lit reviews as you get started writing them this week. And I hope that this information is helpful. I know for some of you, this will be the first lit review that you have ever written. So let's get started. All right. The goal of a literature review is to provide an overview of a topic and look at what is the current state of the academic conversation on that topic. The academic conversation is not like a chat between friends. An academic conversation is the written conversation that takes place between scholars as they write and research on any given topic. So one scholar writes an essay on a topic, another scholar borrows from that essay, but provides more information or perhaps does additional research that either corroborates or contradicts what the first scholar found, and maybe another scholar includes information from both of the first two. And so over time, this is how the knowledge in a particular field is advanced, is through this academic conversation that takes place between the journal articles that are published on any given topic. So when you write a lit review, you are figuring out what's out there, what's already been said on the topic, so that you can then enter that conversation yourself. When you write a lit review, it's really about synthesis. You want to make sure that each paragraph has information from at least two of your sources, possibly more than two of your sources. You're going to organize your lit review by subtopic, not by your sources. So it's not going to be a series of short book reports on each individual source. Instead, you want a paragraph or two paragraphs on each subtopic that you were covering in your lit review. You're going to use a lot of paraphrasing and summarizing because you're covering a lot of ground in a small space. So you're not going to get into a great deal of detail. That's why it's called an overview or a literature review. The important thing to remember is even though you're paraphrasing and summarizing, you do still have to include in-text citations. This is probably other than creating a bunch of short book reports, this is typically the most difficult aspect for students to grasp sometimes, is this need for citations, even though something's been rewritten in their own words. And we'll talk about that more later in this video. Okay, paraphrasing versus summarizing. What's the difference? So if I'm going to paraphrase from a source, I'm probably borrowing one or two specific pieces of information. Typically, this is going to come from just a couple of sentences in my source. And then I'm going to take that information and rewrite it into my own words so that it flows better in my literature review, better than what a quotation would. And then I'm always going to add an in-text citation. If I'm going to summarize information, then I'm drawing out the overall idea. So what is the main idea in a paragraph, or maybe two or three paragraphs in one of the sources that I'm going to use? What is that main idea that source is communicating in that larger section? And then I'm going to write that in my own words, and again, add the in-text citation. The biggest difference between paraphrasing and summarizing is the amount of information that I'm trying to communicate to my reader from the original source. Paraphrasing, I'm going to try to keep it even though it's my own words, keep the information very close to what it was represented as in the original source. Where when I summarize, I'm really looking for main ideas that I can share about that particular text. All right, this is an example of what I do not want you to do when you are writing your lit review. I do not want you to organize by source. So if you look at the first paragraph here, the source cats are amazing. And I know this is kind of a silly example, um, but it will show you what I'm talking about. Cats are amazing. That's the only source that's cited in that paragraph. Then if you look at the next paragraph, it's all about a dog's town. And then the last paragraph, according to the book Raising an Urban Puppy, etc., that is for an entirely different source. And so what this example shows you is that series of short book reports. Here's information from this source, information from my second source, information from my third source. This is what you don't want your book review to do. Or sorry, your literature review. You do not want it to do this, okay? This example shows you what you do want to do. So if you look at the first sentence of each paragraph here, the first paragraph is about mental and physical health of urban pets versus suburban pets. The next paragraph is about resources in urban environments for pet owners. These are subtopics. So in the first paragraph, I have two sources quoted. And then in the next paragraph, you only have part of a paragraph here, but that paragraph as well would have more than one source cited in it. And this is how you organize your literature review. You want to look at what are your subtopics. And when you write a lit review, you might choose your subtopics in advance, or the subtopics might change as you're working your way through your research. Your subtopics, you want to start with at least a couple in mind, but it's possible that as you research your topic, especially if it's a topic you're not super familiar with, what will happen is you go, oh, wow, there's this whole other thing I should be talking about. Let me add this new subtopic. So don't lock yourself in to set subtopics when you first start reviewing your sources, but kind of have an idea of what you think those subtopics are going to be. And then you can take your notes uh, sort of under each of these different areas, and that will make it a lot easier to write your literature review. All right, this slide is just a few reminders to make sure that you stay on track as you work on your lit review. And you'll notice they all follow the same theme. Anytime you borrow information, whether you paraphrase, summarize, or quote directly, you have to have an in-text citation. When you rewrite facts into your own words, that does not remove the need for an in-text citation. Not using in-text citations equals a partially plagiarized essay. There is no way for a reader to know which facts come from which sources unless you have in-text citations. Why am I beating this into you so hard? Why am I going over this again and again? Because I want to save you from the absolutely miserable experience of having to go back and find which source contained which facts that are in your literature review or any other section of the research project that you are about to work on. Been there, done that, y'all. It is unpleasant, and you do not want to do this to yourself. If you're not sure how to format the in-text citation for a particular source, that doesn't matter. All you need is to know which source, and if it's a source with page numbers, you need to know what page. So if that means you make a list on a piece of paper of your sources and then number them 1 through 6, or if you decide you want more sources, that is permissible, 1 through however many sources you decide you want to use in the project. Then as you take your notes, just put a number next to each one. This is from source 1, this idea is from source 2. If it's a source with page numbers, make sure that you also include the page number where you found the information. It is no fun having to go back through an ebook chapter by chapter, hunting for the piece of information that came from that book, but you need a page number in order to cite it in your paper. Guys, this is the absolute worst experience, okay? Do not do this to yourselves. Keep track of your source and location information as you take notes. As I said before, I would recommend taking your notes underneath of your various subtopics. That might mean that if you like to do electronic notes, that you open several different Word files and take notes for each subtopic in its own file. Or maybe you do it all in the same file, but you have different sections for each subtopic. Same thing works if it's pencil and paper. Do a separate piece of paper for each source. Because most sources these days are electronic, I will tell you, if you're a pencil and paper note taker, you might want to try doing things electronically instead. You can try out things like OneNote, or just, like I said, use a Word file and just start putting the information in there. Just make sure that you identify the source and the location, if there is one, the page number, for every single piece of information. Going back and finding this later is just not something you want to do. As you work on the lit review, if you have questions, you can email me. Please use my Highlands email address. I do not check D2L email. I probably will notice it again and go, oh yeah, I should look at that probably around midterm, maybe. Sometimes it takes longer than that for me to notice there's a message there. So use my Highlands email. You'll get a quicker response. Or text me, call me. You've got my cell phone number. You're not bothering me if you reach out. I do actually really like talking to my students. So feel free, text, call, get help if you need it. This assignment should not be miserable. This should not be something that causes you a huge amount of stress. If you are stressing over this assignment, it's probably time to reach out for some help. If you are having trouble finding the sources that you need, I'm pretty good at searching, but I will tell you the librarians are way better. So if it's a matter of locating sources, I would recommend the Ask a Librarian chat, or reach out to our embedded librarian, Susanna Smith, and let her help you. Other than that, I hope this is helpful, and I will talk to all of you again soon.